Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 30th call of the Amazon Investor Coalition. This is a weekly call and podcast series dedicated to advancing forest-friendly economic development across the Amazon region. This week, Daniela Castro is our presenter. She leads an impact advisory firm called Impacta Advisory, part Portuguese, part English. That's some great branding. And she's going to speak to us a bit about rule of law in the Amazon region. You can't have healthy economic development without a healthy rule of law and governance system to back it. So Daniela, please tell us a little bit about yourself. And then from what I understand, you also have a presentation to offer.
Yes, thank you, Jonah, for the invitation. It's an honor to be here and share some thoughts and also contribute to this debate. Well, my name is Daniela Castro. I am a lawyer and I have a master's degree in economics. And I started my career working at the private sector, but most part of my career, I worked to NGOs, implementing advocacy plans, and also I work for the government. I was for 10 years a CEO of an advocacy organization that fights against corruption in sports. And I also received the title of emerging leader of a US federal program created by Hillary Clinton. And in 2016, I decided to start my social enterprise, Impacta Advocacy. And we help to build advocacy plans and implement them. We work only with projects that have positive impact and projects that are related to the Sustainable Development Goals. So 2 years ago, I was invited by a Brazilian organization to help to create an advocacy plan to against deforestation in public lands. And last year, a social investor in Brazil asked me to organize an analysis about the root causes of deforestation in Amazon, and also to survey some advocacy initiatives and cross them with some root causes. So, and also last year, and I finished the presentation, and I was in the beginning of the creation of Amazonia Viva, and I was very moved by the problem in Amazon. So today I want to share with you a presentation, talk a little bit about advocacy and root causes, advocacies and strategies. So, and I want to talk about this focus on governance and rule of law. And after this, I will share some points of this work that we did, some analysis of the root causes. And also I will talk about some strategies as delivery units or private agreements that could be a good way to create impact in this complex problem. So I will share, I wish I could be brief. So it's okay. Are you seeing? Yes, okay.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. So let me arrange this. Okay. So advocacy is a strategy used to change behaviors, policies, or system. It's not lobbying. It's a strategy that lobbying can be one of them, but is not just lobbying or try to influence the government. So we create impact, we can act directly with a social action with beneficiaries, and it's important because we have to do sometimes emergency measures, and it's simple, as we saw with Amazonia Viva, for example. And advocacy initiative is more effective if you work on the root causes, but it demands long term, but it is long lasting. So first I want to just, you may know about changes, but I want to, if you want to create changes, and when we talk about governance and law, and it's very complex, but changes is complex. We are talking about problems that are complex, interconnected. We have several stakeholders and interests. And Amazon, it's a complex problem. Change is unpredictable. Obstacles are structural, political, and sometimes related to the rule of the game. Most public policies have implementation problems such as poor management and governance. In 2017, the World Bank published a report talking about governance and law, and it's a problem around the world. Sometimes we have law, it's the case in Amazon, but the problem is the implementation of them. Policies and decisions are created and made with or without us, social participation. And the decision came from those who are engaged. So the first thing that we have to do is join the game, and we have to know how to join the game also. But there is some, it's important, I said this slide because it's important when we will talk about strategies, that there are some conditions that permit that changes happen. One of them is political commitment. So if the leader is committed with the cause or with the change, it's easier. And the second is clear goals, efficient management, viability, constancy, and measurement of public policies. A constant relation with decision makers. It's not only be there for one meeting, you have to be there all the time. Public demand, of course, we can say pressure, but also support. Take action to solve root causes and take care, because sometimes we act on the symptoms. And changes in mentality and culture occurs in a long term, but also is long lasting. So when you have a clear vision of the change, so we can choose some strategies, some approaches as lobbying, communication campaigns, coalitions, research and private agreements, or litigation. So there is many forms to influence or to try to create change. But I will focus on public policies. So public policies, and I focus because we want to change reality in a large scale. Most causes is not only about Amazon. We can talk about education, health, violence, are related to public policy. We need to influence the government. We need the state to approve laws, to implement public policy, or to avoid setbacks. So rule of law, I think it's very important, and I saw a lot of material, good material in the website. And this is one quote from the World Bank: governance is a process through which state and non-state actors interact to design and implement policies within a given set of formal and informal rules that shape and are shaped by the power. So it's governance, it's very important, and we have a huge problem in different causes related to governance. Oh, okay, but it's impossible to change government. No, it isn't. There are many progress in humanity that we succeed. It's not easy, but we have examples, and behind those initiatives, you can find a plan or a strategy and a constancy of funding, and also a constant work to change. So this is a few steps that I bring to you when I build a plan. An advocacy plan is not is not to know the proposals or the solutions. It's how to implement change. This is what I think that civil society has to focus. How to implement, we know what we have to do, but how to implement is so difficult, and in this case it's so urgent. So first, I only a few steps. First, define the change with measurable goals if possible. I call it impact goal in the long term in order to achieve large scale results. It's possible to be more tangible, to be more measurable sometimes. A deep diagnosis focus on the root causes that generate the problem, define key results or intermediate goals that are necessary to accomplish change. This is very important. If you want to influence the government, you have to know everything. It's as like one day the government said to you, okay, you will be the environmental minister, you can do whatever you want. So the civil society has to know what are these key results, what has to be done. Mapping straight resistance, barriers, stakeholders, decision makers, political power and context, laws, public policy, budget, international mechanisms, risks. So it's very important to map everything in order to define better strategies. And one point is important is the better is that if we can articulate different agents towards coordinate actions. This is a very important thing. Coordinate investment, coordinate actions. And after all this, then we define the activities. So, and now I will show some points of this study that we made. This is Amazon. I use a photo from a friend, and this is a huge problem. It's a complex problem. So this is an example, for example, that it is a complex problem. Where deforestation happens, we can say that the major deforestation areas occurring and on private lands, non-designated public lands. The major increase of deforestation since 2013 occur on non-designated public lands, in private lands, and environmental protection areas. At the same with the wildfires. So this is important because, for example, if we want to end deforestation in private lands, we have to analyze different stakeholders, different laws, different governmental agenda agencies. So the same for non-designated public lands. So this is a complex, and each plan or each action strategy, you have to know everything about the ecosystem, the system of the change that you want to influence. And the next step, and I think it's very important when we, especially in governance and rule of law, but not only, is to map the root causes. And we did an exercise here, mapping the root causes. 80% of the problems come from 20% of all causes, so it's very important, and this allowed to be more effective when you are implementing a advocacy plan. So we analyzed these using some methodologies as the 5 whys, Ishikawa diagram, and we use this, we start on some primary causes: land grabbing, illegal logging, agriculture, livestock. It was an extensive work to do this, and we found 7 root causes categories responsible for Amazon deforestation. Bureaucracy, inspection, monitoring, impunity, private and public resources, marketing, mentality, and culture. So if we take a look on these first 4, or maybe 5, we can realize that all of them are related to rule of law and governance. So we have to influence the government. So this is clear when you look at the root causes of Amazon deforestation, but not only in Amazon. It's normal when you talk about some causes, some social problems. This is something that we do. I think it's an exercise. You can create another one, but it's when you have a lot of root causes, how you can prioritize. So we did a prioritization here. Rate severity, urgency, impact, and scale. And we use this to propose solution in the short and long run. So it helps to do this, because when you see Amazon and the deforestation rate, it's urgent. Maybe we are getting the turning point. So it's very important to end deforestation, and the government has the power and the scale to do this. So this can be a good compass for you to decide investment or decide which project will be implemented. So we found monitoring private resources. That means that cut money to the legal activities, are also create incentives to a new economy, for example, bureaucracy and inspection. So this is an exercise that we did to show that it's possible to prioritize, because when you look the root causes and you say, oh my God, it's complicated. What the first thing that I have to do? So this is a way, and that's, and another thing, it's good if different investors or organization, they share this kind of analysis, because they can talk about initiatives and avoid duplicity, for example. So I choose some triggers that we think that can create a huge impact. And I choose those, but you can choose others. So first, implementation of public policy, such as designation public forests. I will give an example. Withdrawal of funds for illegal activity. You can use this through private agreements. Digitalization and transparency of data in order to monitor change, because without this, you can implement public policy, and you can implement some private agreements if you can monitor things, and if we don't have access to data. And also incentives to new economy. This is again, an example of what we can do with this information. So bureaucracy, for example, we interview people from the government, and we know that some of non-designated public forests are in the governor in the regional level. So this number, so maybe we can work with the governors to designate this land. So maybe create a delivery unit for this to support the government, because some problems, the root causes that we found said to us that the problem is bureaucracy, for example, lack of skills or resources to do this. And delivery units, you can support the government, and also is a pressure. Also, you can monitor and help the government to achieve uh, the change that we want. So this is the first part of the study, and let me check the, okay. And I bring some ideas about new advocacy strategies related to governance and law. So I will talk about first about implementation, delivery units, second, private agreement, and the last one is financing advocacy initiative. For me, it is a strategy to achieve change, and it's more a conclusion than a strategy. But so you may know about the public policy cycle. So first, there is a problem identification, setting agenda. After this, create a solutions and make a decision. And after this, implementation. And this is, as I said, a big problem, not only Brazil. So, and when if you want to influence the government and work with rule of law and implement policies, we have to understand it is a very complex process. It's not linear. We face technical and political challenges, ideological and institutional context, complex network and social of social and official agents. Sometimes we have windows of opportunities, sometimes we don't. We are talking about big institutions, fight against fragmentation, inertia, bureaucracy, and sometimes with conflicting goals. Maybe you have a goal in the agriculture with the agriculture ministry, and the environment ministry has a different one. We have a problem of short-term vision in public policy, especially in Brazil, but I don't think that it's only our problem. And a lack of reliable information, and of course, information asymmetry. So the barriers to implement, it's a challenge. Implementation is political. We have to understand that. We have to be on the game. And changes in political, we face changes in political, social, and economic scenario, a lack of political support and results-driven leadership, bad management, governance, and operational plans, lack of focus, skills, results, flows and process, routines, deadlines, and monitoring. I've been there, I know. Mistakes in project planning, and difficulty in regional projects, work with different levels in the government, bureaucracy resistance, low project priority, lack of incentives, and conflict interests. Stakeholders differences, scarce and poorly deployed resources due to lack of prioritization, and discontinuity of programs, difficulties in institutionalization public policies, for example. So we have to know this in order to create a strategy. So a strategy that I like to talk about is delivery units. So this is a model was first created in United Kingdom in 2001 during the tenure of Prime Minister Tony Blair. And after its success in UK, the model was adapted to the realities in about 30 countries around the world. Also in Latin America and also in Brazil, we have some examples of delivery units. So delivery units are focused on the search for concrete results that commit decision makers to long-term goals. Based on a concise and technical team, delivery units focus on prioritization and use data for constant monitoring of goals, enable efficient identification and resolution of obstacles to delivery of quality public service. And most of the time they have a support of the president or the ministry or the secretary, the leader. This process fosters methodological and cultural change in public management, allowing focus on long-term effects in favor of adoption of a complex and innovative process and routines, yielding more effective results, with an impact on improving the results of public policies. So I saw many examples, also in Brazil, when civil society helped the government to create delivery units. This is a strategy. We are used to create strategy as pressure, litigation, and approve laws, but this is a strategy that it's very good. And for example, it demands negotiation. It demands sometimes maybe organization that not that have this expertise, but it's something that I have some few examples in Brazil, but I believe there is a way, because if the implementation is our problem, for example, the certification of land property, and the problem sometimes is to implement the certification. Of course, that we have resistance, and sometimes you cannot create a delivery unit or the government doesn't want it, but sometimes you can. So, and this is a way. But well, now the private agreements. I like private agreements. I think that I coordinate one against corruption in Brazil. We have 32 big companies, and I create the governance and all the strategy to this private agreement. And I believe this is a great strategy, especially in Amazon issue, because private sector has a political power. So sectorial and multi-sectoral agreements bring together stakeholders with a common agenda and impactful action as a solution for negotiating and seeking consensus or agreement on complex issues. Self-regulation can help solve public problems. Laws and policies affect business. Most social and political and economic problems require action by public authorities. So we can organize the private sector to do this. Pacts can focus on governance and rule of law to unlock process and implement policies on the necessary scale so that agreements can be fulfilled. I have an example in Brazil, the approval of the digital plan. Different companies helped to approve this plan and participate in the implementation of this plan. Political importance of influence with public authority, but goals and governance of these agreements are very important for the success of the initiative. It's not something that, oh, let's sign a piece of paper. No, you have to define goals and governance and actions. Finance advocacy initiatives, I think it's a strategy that we need in Brazil. The funds for advocacy, it's difficult because you are saying that, oh, how we can change so this public policy is so complex. So it's not easy to raise a fund to advocacy initiatives. The investment decision must consider impact in this change, the structural change and public policy. So this is very important, and this can bring impact and include unlock some process in different other strategies as incentives to new business. It's important to be sure whether projects works on root causes and the plan that the organization has, and monitoring and be with the organization. It's a good thing to do. You can see the victories, you can understand what's happening, and financing is a political force in the process of change. So I'm finishing, and I will share some ideas. This is important, maybe some ideas to the group. I don't know if I can do this, Jonah, but it's create awareness about the importance to invest on governance and all the material, and I believe it, and it's urgent, because the impact and the scale that some decisions have, it's huge. So we have to stop deforestation in the first place. We did a research about advocacy initiative. This Brazilian investor asked us to do this. It's a first draft. It's about the advocacy initiatives, and we cross with root causes, but it's something very good that can help investor to decide investment in rule of law and governance or advocacy initiatives. And of course, maybe some rules of causes, we need some initiatives. So maybe these investors can promote new advocacy initiatives. So I finish with these ideas, and that's it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Daniela, for sharing with us. If you will, we're going to move into questions now. I'm going to go ahead and start us off. I'm going to set the stage a little bit, and then Yida Jesu already has a question. So first from me, when I lived in Brazil, my wife worked at the Kellogg Foundation. This is the early 2000s. I became familiar with sort of their impact analysis. They pursued the 3 I's, the idea, the individual, and the innovation. Part of the opportunity here is for you to lead some investors and philanthropies in this rule of law direction and this implementation of delivery units. So I'd love it if you could share us a little bit about your experience dealing with sports and corruption surrounding sports, because some of the same learnings there may be applied to your leadership and your scholarship on rule of law in the Amazon.
Well, I work with human rights for 20 years, and I with advocacy in a sport, I start. That's when I start to study about change. And I was a CEO, so I have to deliver. I want that change could happen faster, because it's something that, how can I be more efficient? So it was the first time that I read a lot, especially North American material, because I think that you have great material and experience and successful initiatives. So I create as a CEO a plan, a 5-year plan, advocacy plan, and we decide we have specific goals. So we decide to learn everything about the problem and everything about public policies, everything about law, and we interview stakeholders, and we interview allies and opponents, and then it was an NGO formed by 80 former athletes, different modalities, and they want to make an impact. So against the corruption, but not only to promote public policies at schools and to increase the physical activity rate. So we created 3 goals. So double the physical activity rate in Brazil, physical activity in all schools, and a plan against the corruption. So when we said that, we decide some strategies. So let's talk about the private sector. Let's approve a law first that said we approve, in fact, in 2013, that decided to receive public money, sports entities have to follow some rules. So we have to some president of sport entities remain in charge for 40 years. So it's not possible. They have to share information about transparency and accountability. So then if they do this, they can receive public money. So after this, we, in the beginning, after we was creating a coalition. So we decide all this plan with other actors, other stakeholders, and we try to share the tasks and financing, and to avoid duplicity, for example, because it's hard to raise money to advocacy. So it's better to work with others and in a coordinated way. So after this, one thing that I always said that advocacy plan is a compass. Is not the plan is not the same plan when you do, for example, a project plan, because part of the goals, it's outside the organization. So you are trying to influence something. So you have to know the path, you have to set the strategy, but it's unpredictable. So after this, I will tell, because this private agreement, a big company invited me to a meeting and said, oh, I know this law and it's related to public funds, but I am a sponsor of sport entities, and I have risks and my compliance, and it was the same time that anti-corruption law was approved in Brazil. So how can participate on this? And then I said, why don't you put this on your contract? And said, oh, but if I do this, my competitors can close the deal with the sport entity. So we said, if all the sponsors agree to not sponsor sport entities that are not aligned and are not following the law. for example. And it took 1 year and a half to build this private agreement. There is a specific methodology for do this, and we have to approve the agreement. So we are talking about Itaú, Bradesco, and Gol, Latam, competitors inclusive. So this is my experience in sports.
Great. Thank you for that. Some of the same experiences there can apply to the bankers in the private sector that is putting money into the Amazon region. So as we begin to move into questions, I just want to share with everybody, I've posted in the chat this link to this rule of law philanthropy survey that we're doing. We've identified 26 different strategies to help defend and improve the governance and rule of law across the Amazon. We've identified about 90 different grant makers and bilateral agencies that are putting money into the Amazon region across all 9 countries. And our door is to figure out what are the strategies, what's working, what's not. We're collaborating with Daniela on the design of it. That is not, the document I've posted is not set in stone. You're all invited to help make it into a better effort. So first up, we have Yida Jesu from the European Forest Initiative, and then Marina from Connexus. Yida, you're up.
Okay. Thank you very much, Johan. Thank you, Daniela, for a very insightful and rich presentation. I really enjoyed it, even if I missed the first part of your presentation. You mentioned that implementation is one of the main problems, which I do share basically, based on my experience in several tropical countries. Don't you also think that a lack of mechanisms to implement laws and policies also a problem, which is different from implementation? Because we have come across or worked with a number of tropical countries which actually struggle to develop and then establish governance mechanisms. It could be now creating a multi-stakeholder structure, for citizens to participate in, decision-making process or implementation of policies. So I would like to hear your opinion with regard to that, lack of mechanisms of governance mechanisms as one of the main challenges as well. The other point I have is that you, in one of your slides where you put, priorities of the root causes of deforestation or governance in general, how do you advise governments to, prioritize out of that list of priorities you list there? Because countries have limited resources, limited financial capacities and human resources. I faced a similar question when I did a similar consultancy for the Congo Basin countries. I was asked to come up with that kind of list as well. So how do you advise? Because it's a long list, what you have there, but for those countries with limited resources, how do you do that? Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Go for it, Daniela.
So I have to say that the root causes exercise it's used by government to create plans. For example, we had not anymore an environmental plan to end deforestation, and it's called PPCDAM. It's the first was made in 2008, I think. It's a very good. So the government made this exercise in order to decide public policies. So it's when the government has and sometimes available. You can check on the internet. And is the better when the government has this exercise and this analysis, we have to use it. and the first thing. But if they don't have, you have to do it. But sometimes, and of course, the civil society with this can choose. For example, if you know the impact, and in Brazil, for example, Amazon deforestation, we have some reports of civil society telling us that this experience was successful. This was a key to the decreasing of deforestation a few years ago. So we know things, and we can choose. For example, the idea of, that's why I think that when you establish goals for your advocacy plan, it has to be something outside the organization. So I know that if I had the power to change, I will have to do this. And then as organization, you can choose. It's impossible to do everything. That's why I like to use the prioritization system. It's something that I can measure my priority when I create an advocacy plan. And sometimes if you do this within a coalition, it's better because you can share tasks. And this is something that, for example, the private sector, when they want to influence the government, they share information. Sometimes they share strategies. So we have to do this. And you are correct, the implementation is a big problem, and it demands the civil society new skills and new to influence.
Great, thank you. Marina.
Hi, Daniela. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really insightful. My question to you has to do with what I see with, I used to work for several foundations, and I agree with you that there is very little money going towards advocacy. I was wondering if you have seen anything like this, maybe donors getting together and thinking about how they can pool the resources of advocacy together to make more effective campaigns from one side. And on the other side, if you have seen organizations also coming together to have campaigns that are actually combined campaigns, because usually what you see also is that each organization want to have their own campaign. Oh, my brand is that I campaign for this, or I campaign for that. And how it would be very helpful if, for example, when maybe you are in a good position to do that, to influence that, okay, let's see out of this list, what are the most impactful ones? And let's try to combine donors from one side and also combine organizations to do more effective things together. Have you seen this movement at all on the advocacy field? That's my question. Thank you.
I think it's a challenge. I work with the organization for 20 years, and I think it's a challenge because sometimes that we want to have our project, and duplicity in advocacy is damaged because, and this is something that we have to learn. I saw some initiatives, for example, a coalition against the modern slavery in Brazil, for example. They create a private agreement, for example, with the federal prosecutor in Brazil. But it's a challenge because I saw many coalitions, but to be a leader in a coalition, it demands patience and many interests. So you have to, that's why it's the same in private agreement. I think that we have to set an agenda, and sometimes they can agree in everything, and governance, and a plan, an advocacy plan also. That's why I recommend the better would be that a coalition create an advocacy plan and they can coordinate efforts. Because that's again, it's the way that private sector does business when they are trying to influence the government. And we have resources but it's not in amount sufficient to work. So this duplicity, so it's a challenge. I'm saying I saw different coalitions, but it's a challenge to have the same plan, coordinate actions. But I think that we are learning to do this, because the problems are that we are facing, and the problems in the political field that affect all of us is demanding us to do this. I don't know if I answer.
Marina, did you have a follow-up?
No, I don't. But thank you,
Okay.
Daniela. Congratulations on your work.
Fiona.
Thank you. First of all, Daniela and Jonah and all the team involved, I want to just take a moment to thank you for your dedication to these very complex, very diverse questions, and nobody knows the answers. And so the solution even is that we have to work together. So thank you for bringing us together. So I was looking at, for example, an advocacy group that we've been working with, FAS Amazonas, and I was asking, for example, after their representation in the Amazon of 250 different tribal communities and outreach groups, I have, done quite a bit of analysis with them and through the community outreach of their groups. How do we help to advocate and bring not just the voices of the Indigenous people together, but also bringing in a capability for them to gain funding and global advocacy and other groups like that. So thank you for exploring some of your talented work and helping us to finance the solutions.
Daniela.
Hi, Fiona. There is not a simple solution or one solution. You are right, and that's why when some initiatives you have to work with several approach. So you have to lobby, you have to work in coalitions, you have to communicate, sometimes litigation, but you can choose. It's not just one. And when you analyze, that's why, for example, a stakeholder map and to analyze power. And for example, when we are talking about stakeholders, we can map the media, we have to, when I created the Voxy plan, I interview a lot of people, because sometimes it's just the politics. You talk with people. You have to talk, because sometimes you can, if you look the website, you don't have the information, and you have to know the agenda. Some things are not said. So it's not a formula that I can give you, but it's for each of these strategies, there is methods and ways, and the diagnosis is the first step. You have to know everything, and then it's natural. And another thing is the capacity building. I think, for example, here in Brazil, we create an advocacy hub with some classes to create professionals and people that can work with advocacy strategies. So because we don't have this kind of thing. Of course you have, but it's not something that we have to. We must have more courses teaching advocacy, for example.
Nina.
Thanks, Jonah.
Just to be clear, this will be our last question. We're near the top of the hour.
Lucky me. And thanks, Daniela, for a great presentation. I work for the Global Landscapes Forum, and we will be running pretty big forum, online conference, two-day conference in the week of the 20th of September. We'll be taking a landscape lens and a biocultural lens to the Amazon and really looking Amazon inside out. So what kind of great solutions ready to scale, what has been proven to work in the Amazon that, you know, could work, and then do a kind of bringing investors to it and see what we can do. With your experience, what would be, and we're at the moment right now to shape this conference, what would be your advice to do or not to do so we can drive the biggest change with this?
I don't know if I get the question. So in terms of the projects, or?
Well, we can bring a lot of people together. So our conferences typically have like 5,000 people attending and reach between 30 and 40 million people. So we work with a big network of established big organizations like the World Bank, like WWF. But we're right now creating this conference, and a couple of things are clear, as I just explained, that we really want to focus on good examples. We want to really put rights at the center, the people at the center, the people of the Amazon at the center, and looking what kind of solutions there are with regards to business solutions, innovations, social approaches, rules, maybe in some areas of governance solutions, and what can be scaled. And this is part of a 6 month, will be part of a 6 month kind of a campaign for the Amazon, as we're going towards the tipping point, as the political environment is changing, that there could be a window of opportunity. And so how can we put this amazing reach and convening power that we have to help effect change more quickly?
Okay, I think that maybe the conference is not only to share information, but to take action and bring this subject, the governance and law and Vox initiatives. It can be very important because some, for example, maybe sometimes a social business, they want to scale, but we have to change the law and we have to create incentives. So if that's some of the ideas, I think that Jonah can talk more about it, but it's to promote and funding more organizations that are working with governance and law. And this is very important because even to avoid setbacks, to implement politics, or to clear the way for the new business and new ideas, it is important. So, and we have a lot of work to do. It's very urgent. And that's why I keep saying, and I was very glad to contribute with Jonah in this subject, governance and law, because without the public policies, we can have a scale. So this is my point, my opinion.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We have reached the top of the hour. Daniela, I've posted your email address in the chat for people to be able to follow up with you.
Thank you.
This is the moment that I call water cooler time, where we end the formal proceedings and we dismiss class, and people hang out and network and talk afterwards in an unstructured way. So Daniela, thank you for joining us. You're certainly welcome to stay around. Everyone else, thank you so much. And ta-da, now we're in our unstructured time.
Thank you, Jonah. Do you want me to stay?
Yeah, I think some people would like to to follow up with you if you have time.
Yes, I have.
I put everybody on mute, so otherwise I think we would be hearing people saying goodbye. Does anybody have any questions or announcements or follow-up?
I have not an announcement, but I have some comments. Daniela, hi, very nice to meet you. Regarding coalitions, I think one very interesting Brazilian example for a very large coalition is what is happening in the education system, where the leading foundation institutes, nonprofit organizations are working closely with various levels of the government to map, in a first step, they map the entire challenge of the education system. And then each organization took on specific challenges, allowing them to both have their priorities and also be seen as major contributors, while also serving the whole, right? And I think that this is something that we can learn a lot from. And then, you know, together with ACT, who you might know, who have been so successful. So Paula is one of our partners and an old friend and so forth. We created an alliance of many of the leading health-oriented organizations in Brazil. And they also have each their particular focus, their particular identity and work, but they cover together the field of health, you know. And then so these are, so we have facilitated their collaboration for several years at the outset of coming together. And I think you need to first go through, yes, it's wonderful, let's all work together. Then you actually start to work together and then you say, oh my God, you know, they're not doing it like I'm doing it. They're doing it wrong. My way is much better. Everybody should just do it my way. And then you help them to see, isn't it wonderful that you are doing more research and I'm doing my activism? Because if you're doing the research, I actually don't have to do the activism, which I actually don't like to do so much. And so then we help them to facilitate, you know, a process where actually they recognize the richness of their diversity. And it was in that they, you know, and this is not just a conceptual process, this is a personal process. You need to get to, as you said, you need to get together in person, you need to like each other, you need to want to work together. And the more you meet each other, which of course has become more difficult in the times of COVID, the more you develop the capacity to also find conceptual agreement, policy collaboration, sharing things. And I think lastly, of course, it is very important to pull together, forces that align all of these organizations that have different interests and different business models that oppose them in some way. And so we do that, for example, in the field of business and you know, regenerative business, where large companies can actually be a very forceful, strong convening force that brings all these different approaches from circularity to B Corp to this, that, and the other into one conceptual room, one large tent, because you have this splitting up of forces in every movement. And this is actually one way how the mainstream prevails, because all the innovative forces are separated and individuated, and so individually they're never strong enough to challenge the mainstream. Only when they come together can they really do that. So I think this whole topic of alliance building and so forth in a very pragmatic manner is a really key for this. And I think later on, Jonah, we can dig down more deeply into this. But anyway, I wanted to give at least 2 Brazilian examples that I know that worked well.
Yes, the ACT coalition, it's great. I used to use as an example. I know Paula. We organized together a conference about advocacy in Brazil, and I couldn't remember when they asked me, but you're right. And and in education. And Ana Marina knows a lot of coalitions and great projects. And I think that one thing that coalition is not easy. I know that. That's why we have to we must have a method and set agendas, and we have some agreements about how we can do this. For example, in this private agreement that I'm in charge of the management of it, we have banks, competitors.
Yeah.
So it's not easy, but we have to learn, because if not, it's something that we are going to lose the fight, because the decisions are being made all the time. And so we have to learn. This is my, just for you, is my, I have a critic in the civil society. We don't work together very well, and we have to learn, be more professional on this, because the benefits that you said, they are real.
Yeah. I unfortunately need to go. So I say thank you to everybody. And thank you, Daniela, especially for your, not only your presentation, but the great work that you've done for so long. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
To be involved with you, even though we didn't even know each other. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Walter. Hey, Nina, if you're around, I'd like to talk with you. I'm going to go ahead and put it, stop the recording.